In this part 2 of the project emanating from G20 and then specifically the agreements with the Saudi Arabia, not I'm just talking about the MOU of IEC in which Europe, etc. are involved. The direct agreements with Saudi Arabia. They include as follows: an optical refinery, I have already mentioned, number one, which becomes the first node of this new economic corridor or network. And then optical fiber project, then the Gulf Council and India's FTA, which has been discussed for the last couple of years, to be finalized. Then because that will tell what you can import or export without duties, etc., etc., etc. Then, because if huge projects have to be done, then if there are import duties on machinery and boilers and engines and bogies and this differently, and then for seats differently, etc., it makes the life difficult. And these huge projects then cannot be implemented in time. If they're not implemented in time, actually opposition arises to them. Discomfort arises with them, as it has arisen with our Persian or North Corridor, with Iran and USSR. Though Iran has given us the Chabahar port, but the rail link from there via Armenia to St. Petersburg is not yet fully ready. Okay, so now coming to that, fintech cooperation, then the local currency use agreement, so that we can use reals or dirhams, and they can use rupees, and so we can exchange oil also in our local currencies. So our dependence on the dollar, or so-called hard currency, immediately drops down. Then the two Exim banks, export-import banks, to develop a joint strategy. Then now please notice that we are Saudi Arabia is our number 2 trading partner, and we are number 3 or 4 trading partner for Saudi Arabia. So our mutual trade is of the order of $50 billion, which is not small at all, and it is going to grow. And by the way, the refinery project, $50 billion is the investment which Saudi Arabia has committed for that particular refinery. And it is a joint thing with Indian companies and Saudi Aramco, and the government's also getting involved. Then we have the two SME banks. They have signed agreements. Then desalination of the seawater plant and to make it potable, that is there, which has been going on for quite some time, but now it's a fresh agreement. Then grid connectivity. Now, mind you, the optical fiber, of course, is talked about, but then there are other grids too. Now it's possible to transmit electricity under the sea cables. A number of experiments have happened, so on. Now we will talk about what our own capabilities are. And then we have education exchanges, cultural exchanges, and tying up the two national archives, filmmaking, skills development, and then Invest India with the corresponding KSA entity. Then space cooperation, digitization and electronics manufacturing. Now from these agreements signed and MOUs agreed, $100 billion first tranche has been agreed by Saudi Arabia to be invested in this. So it's not just talk, there is real money coming behind it. And from a party which has that money, a lot of bonds are there of America, USA and so on, which hardly give them any returns. So they might as well invest in real assets as the opportunity arises. Now they figure out that India has the capabilities also. There are 2.7 million Indians, I'm not talking about South Asians, working in Saudi Arabia. And it was such a nice thing to note that President of Bharat complimented the Saudi Arabian team, because all the ministers had also come last night, and the Crown Prince, Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, also said that they are our people, just as our citizens are there. We respect them and take care of them. They contribute to our economy. In other words, good feeling about each other. So 2.7 million people is not less. And as far as Hajj is concerned, India is one of the largest countries in terms of the number of Hajj pilgrims every year, 1.75 lakhs. And Indian government gives a lot of support to them. To the poorer people, money is also given. There are facilities to stay, etc., in Delhi and Bombay, and whichever other ports are there from where they go now. So that is a good feeling, the cultural feeling and so on, which both countries want to bring together. So remember, Saudi Arabia is not just that economy which is oil related and all that. It is also the economy of the Hajj pilgrims every year, million or so, and a whole industry which takes care of them. Obviously, hotels and motels and food places, etc., etc. Okay, so now with the Russian refinery which is there in Gujarat, which was formerly the SR refinery, and with this particular refinery coming up, India will have a very large refining capacity, and now it is being speculated in the newspapers that India will start sending back the products to Saudi Arabia or to Middle East, or to be further exported also to Europe, because they don't have that much refining capacity as India will have. So it's like Singapore developed as a entrepot, as a port, and as a trading place, as a city state, because there was very large amount of refining capacity established. At one point of time, largest in Asia, and then used to supply products to the others, though they didn't have a drop of oil themselves. So this is in terms of next stages which one reaches. So the IMEC project, therefore, in a sense, gets going. It's no more thing, and all the other agreements, as far as India is concerned, Saudi Arabia, which are signed, are specific projects with specific agreements, with specific ministers on both sides. And renewable energy, that means basically hydrogen, they are interested. Now, hydrogen, therefore, can be exported from India also, because there are various technical routes to do it. So, if I want to be happy about it, if I want to be positive about it, then I am saying that India will also go to the next level of development, and with lots and lots of opportunities for the Indian workers and managers and engineers and doctors. Now, coming back to this railway project a little bit, it seems Europe will provide the equipment. Within that, specifically, it is most likely that Germany will provide the equipment. Just like Germany had provided the equipment and German banks had provided the money in the Hejaz railway, while the British had only come to destroy it. First time they had the concession, they could not do anything. Now, in this case, Germany will provide these equipments. EU supposedly will therefore give the funding, and EU is interested that this kind of route is developed, which gives counter to the European route and also is a counter to the route of Suez Canal, which is getting more and more crowded and accidents are happening there. This will be, of course, cheaper also. So there is a positive framework why a project like this should succeed. Now, what are the capabilities therefore? Optical fibers. India has companies which have laid the undersea optical fibers. India has the, or through Mr. Mittal and the Bharti Enterprises, has the capability of implementing, which is already implementing, is the satellite-based internet system, just like SpaceX has. So these are the only two companies in the world. Then it does not have companies which have much of an experience of the laying underground electricity cables, but in Europe that experience is there. Australia also that experience is there. So that experience can be brought from there, and you can have electricity. The idea is that Gulf countries, especially in the context of Plan 2030 of Saudi Arabia, of the Crown Prince, and following with the UAE, because that is also very progressive, they want to use the oil and not for the transportation anymore. They want to use it for producing electricity, and then export electricity, right? So India needs that. So why burn coal here? This all comes in the context of climate action also. And so therefore the electricity becomes a transportable product, and producing wherever it is the cheapest to do it and giving it wherever it is. Already India is supplying electricity to Nepal and to Bangladesh, and buys from Bhutan. So close by we have that experience. There has been some discussion with Sri Lanka also again about undersea cable. So now let's go further. Managing railways and so on. In India, we are not very fond of reading history, and not fond of reading history with geopolitical context and so on. The two major railways in the world besides the India and Europe. Europe, of course, they had cross-connected a lot of things, so in miles and all that, they were way ahead. But it is the Indian engineers and workers who made the East Africa Railway, one of the largest railway system in the world. That is Kenya and Tanzania and one more country. Why should I be forgetting it? But because they've changed their names. So East Africa Railways, and then the largest, longest railway in North America, which was the Canadian Pacific Railway from one end of Canada to the other, going all the way up in the mountains, was built by two communities, Chinese and Punjabis. And they had a competition, one coming from this side, that was the six, up from the forest and all that, and then coming up to Vancouver, and they in the end settled in Vancouver. Today they are the most dominant community in Vancouver. And then the Chinese came from the other side, and there was a golden pin to put it there. Approximately half was built by them, half was built by them, and so on. Now those communities are still there. They are in railway-related equipment and so on, and in logging and forest they own, and garden agriculture and so on. Now let's come back to it. Even in India, of course, there is a very substantial experience in RailTel. RailTel has been consulting for almost 50 odd countries. So we have an opportunity to bag this particular project, whose geopolitics will have to be handled by these bigger powers like the USA and the Saudi Arabia in that particular area. And however, there has been this advanced work done, and India, through Adani Ports, has already bought the Haifa port. Now, Haifa port during Second World War has a history that this was under attack, and there were Indian soldiers of the British Indian Army, who lost about 3,000 lives, which protected this port and the people living there. That is the kind of history. And Haifa is a very good port, very well located. So India has already control over it. And I can go into more and more details, which show that we have the capability in optical fibers, we have the capability in railways, we have the capability in the satellite-based internet communications, we have the capability of engineering, design, we have the capability of producing hydrogen, we have the capability of producing ethanol from the waste. They want food parks because it's an economic corridor. See, the things will be set up around it. One of the things is the food park, which both UAE and Saudi Arabia are very interested. So India, of course, has the experience of setting up food parks and all that. And remember, the Europeans or Americans have some experiences, but they are very expensive. The Indian design, development of such things and all that is quite reasonable. So two competitions can be Chinese or India, but people somehow in this region feel more comfortable with Indians. They don't feel comfortable with Chinese. They don't speak each other's language. They are very insular. They remain separate. The project which they started in Pakistan, $70 billion project called the RCEP, has not succeeded at all. So far, not a single rupee of revenue has come from there. They were given Gwadar port as part of it, and that is just lying unutilized. And Saudi Arabia, incidentally, last month had said that we will spend $15 billion in a refinery there. But since Pakistan has not taken any action and they were not aware what's going to happen here, that refinery possibly will also not start. So people do see that things started by China, at least in this part of the world. Now, the same thing with Burma, the same thing with Thailand and Vietnam and so on. The BRI project has not worked very well. It has worked well in the South America. It has worked well, relatively speaking, in Africa. So therefore, this particular project has been figured out by the Europe, the Americans and so on, that let's bring India in front, and India has got all these capabilities to do it. Saudis have the money, and the Americans have the money, and maybe the Europeans have the money, which we can support them with the money and make it as a model project to show, connectivity between this region and, you coming from India, ship coming from India, I mean, also it can come from any ASEAN country there, no issue. It will come from Bangladesh. So those people who think that, okay, how much India will do it, all that, no, they are not looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the whole of the ASEAN region gets connected also to Europe via a shorter route. So for the time being, I'll stop there. Wishing that this project goes well, we will keep on monitoring it. Government has done very hard work, very thorough work in terms of formulating it. The Saudi Arabian government has done very, very thorough work in doing it. They just they have money, but they don't come and throw it. They don't want to get wasted, which is what they thought that in Pakistan perhaps will go waste. And it brings together the Europe and the Middle East and India. And incidentally, their problems with the Israel go away because Israel becomes part of it, which also has technology. Thank you very much.